Hi, Gray Shooter here. I've been talking on my channel for quite some time about painting some of these sights, and I've talked about the different colors I've mixed and whatnot. And so I thought you might be interested in seeing that. So let me start with the pistols that I painted the front and the rear sights with. Now, if a gun comes with three dot white sights, they just don't show up that well for me. I'm getting older. I wear bifocals. I need something a little more brighter, something that'll catch my attention a little better. So if a gun comes with three dot white sights, I generally paint the front and the rear dots with paint. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. This is my TSOS Duty 45. Initially, I used to just paint the front sight with fluorescent orange, and I would black out the rears with a Sharpie. But I decided, I think I would rather do something a little different here. So what I started doing is I tried different colors. I've got some fluorescent green, which, as you can see, this is just Tester's model paint. It's fairly dark. If you compare it to the green in those sights, it's fairly dark. Well, I tried painting a set of sights with this paint, and it turned out, yes, it is. It was too dark. It really wasn't helping me out very much. Then I discovered that if I put a dot of this fluorescent yellow on top of that green, it made this color. Now you can see that's not yellow either. It's a mixture of these two colors, and it's very, very bright. So I went back and all of my pistols that have three dot sights on them, I changed them all to that. This is my stainless carry model. You see that green and yellow shows up really well. Contrasts really good with that front orange sight. Get it down here where you can kind of see. I see that's not too bad at all. I did it on my Stingray. Very nice. And then it also works great. This is a Gen 1 Smith & Wesson M&P. It's a 40 caliber. And it came, when I got it, it had some night sights that just didn't work anymore. Well, I discovered that if I could apply the paint over those night sights, and now I've got some pretty good contrasting sights on here. I didn't have to spend really any money to do it. So that worked out well. But the point I'm trying to make is you can actually paint right over those crystals. Now I've got quite a few other guns. Some had just regular rear sights. Now this sight is nickel on this pistol here. This is a brushed nickel finish. I still black that sight out with Sharpie. But I did the front sight. You can tell there's a pretty thick coat of that orange paint on there, and it shows up really well. So I like that a lot. And I did it on this Service Special 1911. You see, it just has a plain black serrated sight. And that works out pretty well. I did the same thing on this Tank Commander. It has the same rear sight, and I did the same treatment to it. You see it looks a little humped up, a little thick, and that's about 3 coats of paint. And I'm going to go over the technique I did to do that. Now I've got a couple more pistols here. These are the double stack models. They came with a nice blacked out rear sight, but they had a white dot in the front, which I didn't care for. So on this gun here, I did the green with a dot of the yellow on top. And you want to let the coats dry in between before you apply more. So I let that green dry, and then I put the dot of yellow on top. Now I didn't put much yellow, but it works out really well. They actually come through better in person than they do on this camera. And now this pistol here, I just used just the orange, and it works out great Works out great. Okay. So whether with a dark background or light color background, that front sight's really easy to pick up. Okay. All right. Let me show you the techniques I use and the tools I use. It doesn't require much at all, actually. So if you'll stand by, I'll get set up to do that. Okay, let me start with the paints I use. This is Testors, just regular old model paint you probably remember from when you were a kid. You can pick this stuff up online. You can pick it up in hobby shops. You can pick it up in big box stores, especially if they carry models to build, like cars, airplanes, and whatnot like that. This blue, this red, and this color here, which I think is kind of an orange red. I haven't even opened these. I set them aside. In that pack I bought online, it also came with a small bottle of fluorescent too. But this yellow, the green, and the orange, that's the three primary colors I use. And they work out really well for me. But you can experiment with the other colors if you get those and try them out yourself. Also, you'll need some rubbing alcohol. Doesn't matter whether it's 70% or 90% rubbing alcohol. You'll need a few Q-tips. The Q-tips, what I use them for is I soak them with the alcohol, and then I clean my sight with them really good. Get all the oil, anything, any dirt, any oil that's on there. I make sure I get that off first. Then you can use the other end to dry it really well. I even blow on it. Make sure that alcohol is completely dried off before you start painting. Now, my paintbrush is very simple. It's a toothpick, because you're going to apply very, very small dots, and I mean really small dots of paint. It does not take much paint. A little bit of this paint goes a long way in one of those tiny dots on a gun sight. The only other thing I use is a paper towel to keep from making a mess. Keep a rag handy just in case I need it. Now, I've got an old leather belt that I cut up in pieces. And I've also got this. I bought this years ago. It's a handy little bench vise. It actually clamps to any table. It's got another clamp down here on the bottom. And I can just clamp it on basically any table I want to. And I just use this rug on top of this table to keep the vise from doing any damage to it. It doesn't have to be that terribly tight. But let's start with this sight here. This is just a plain, you see we got a plain serrated back. We just want to do the front. And this sight was serrated. You might can make those serrations out through the paint. Because this paint, as it dries, it kind of sucks down and shrinks a little bit, but you can make out the serrations in there if you look really close. But what I do is I want to put it in the vise where that front sight is level. Now, I think I've got it pretty level right now. I want that sight to be level. I don't want the paint to drip off the front or up onto my slide. I want it to just stay right there in a little puddle. So I take my leather belt, put a piece on either side of my slide so I don't booger it up. And I open my vise up, and I drop it in just like that. Okay. Now I've got my slide secure. Let me drop this down a little bit and get you a little closer look at what's going on here. Okay. Now, like I said, soak one end of my Q-tip with some alcohol. You don't want it, it don't need to be dripping, just wet. Wipe that side off really good. Get all the oil, dirt off of it. Dry it with the other end. Blow on it. Do whatever you want to do. Make sure it's nice and clean. Give it a minute or two for all that alcohol to evaporate off there. Then whatever color you choose to use, such as this fluorescent orange, which you should have given this a good shake before you used it. Okay. So you open the lid up and reach down in there and get a tiny dot of paint, and I mean a tiny dot. Let me pull the camera back up. You want to get just a tiny little dot of paint. That's a little too much, actually. You can always just dab it off on the side of the bottle and it'll come off. But you want to start with just a small amount on there. That's about right there. Can you see that? Just barely is balling up on the end of that toothpick. Let me get my hand behind it where it'll focus. There we go. And then these top sides here, I come in from the side and I use this toothpick as like a brush, and I brush across here. That way it doesn't get too close to my slide and it doesn't get too close to the end. And I come right to the edge and start out with a thin coat, okay? And then let that dry completely. And then after an hour or two, come back, get yourself another little tiny dot of paint. And what I'll usually do is put the dot of paint right in the center, and I'll kind of spread it around just a little bit, okay? And I keep doing that. I do that, let it dry. You can also wipe your toothpick off on this paper towel. That's another handy little use for it. I do that, and then I come back with one final coat. And like I say, I put that drop of paint right in the center of the site because I want it to kind of bead up on here. I want it to be beaded from one side to the other, front to back. And I just slightly spread it out. And that way you'll have just a little bit of a bead-like surface to that last coat of paint. And you can see, like I said, as it dries, it will suck itself down. You'll have a nice thick coat of paint on there, but it'll stand up just a little and have just a little bit of an arch to it, and it'll show up really, really well. Okay, so let me close that up. And that's how I do that. And I just let it dry overnight. And once it's good and dry, you're good to go. Now, with dot sites, now these top sites are probably the most difficult. They're not hard, but they're probably the most difficult to paint. Dot sites are really easy because of one main thing. The dot is a little hole, okay? And you're not going to fill that hole slap full. You just want to cover up the white underneath. So let me start with this gun here. This gun has blacked out rear, and just it had a white dot here, and you can see it's sunken in, and the white paint was down inside there. Well, I took my wet Q-tip and I cleaned down in there very well. Got it nice and clean. And some guns have cheaper white paint than others do, and that white paint will try to smear. Don't worry about it. You can clean it off, you know. Mainly, and you don't need to really scrub like crazy unless this is an old dirty gun. You don't really have to scrub like crazy. You're just kind of getting any surface contaminants off that white paint before you paint over it, okay? And just clean it off, give it a minute to dry. And then the same way, you put leather on either side of your slide. You put it in there, and I still try to get these nice and level. The front, this surface of the sight here, I want it to be flat. Okay, so I just snug it up a little. You don't want to crush your slide, so just snug. And then I get that same little tiny dot of paint, and I'll go in. I'll show from this side, and I'll go in. And I'll try to touch right in the center of that hole. Okay, and then I can always spread it around a little bit, and sometimes I even blow on it, and that kind of helps spread it out a little. But I'll let that first coat dry, and you want to use a tiny amount. You don't want to fill this up flush. If you do that, it may try to smear across the face of your side. But if that happens, it's not a lost cause. You can just let it dry a little bit and just scrape it off with your thumbnail. It's not a problem. If you screw this up, you can easily undo it. The alcohol will get the paint right back off again, or the thinner will get it right back off again, and you can just do it again. If you don't like the color you chose, you can cover it up, or you can take that off, put a different color on, whatever you choose to do. But I'll usually, with a dot sight like this, I'll usually put at least 2 coats. Like I say, I don't want to fill that up. And when the paint's wet, it will be much higher because, as I said, this paint kind of shrinks down as it dries. So that's how I do a single dot sight. Now with 3 dot sights like this, okay, actually the same way. I take, put my leather on the slide, put my slide in the vise, tighten her down. I make sure that this surface of the front side is nice and flat, and about like I've got it right there, is nice and flat. And then the same technique, you come into the center of that dot with your whatever color paint you choose, you touch it in the center, you kind of spread it around gently. You got to use a kind of a fine touch with this stuff, and then come back and get you another dot later on, a couple hours later after it dries. The rear sights, actually the same way, and you can do the rear sights however you choose to do them in whatever color you choose to use. Okay, I'm going to move the camera just a hair after I get this clamped up. But I do the same thing. I get my rear sight kind of leveled up there, and then now, like I say, this is my choice. Let me get a, there we go. I've kind of got it propped up with my knee. I take this green and I put a little dot of paint in there and spread it around with my toothpick, you know, same way. You want to just kind of like paint the inside, cover that white dot in there up, and then let that green dry. Okay. Now you may like the green. I just thought it was a little too dark for my eyes anyway. I have astigmatism. I wear glasses, plus I wear bifocals for reading glasses. So, you know, my eyes are fighting me the whole way. So I need every help I can get. So anyway, after the green dries really well, then come back and just put a single dot of this yellow on top, and you'll get this bright color that you can see. I'll hold these 2 bottles of paint up. You can see it's neither green nor yellow. It's a little bit of a combination, because if you put a single dot of the yellow on top of the green will still show through it. And that makes it, like I say, it changes it to a kind of a medium in between color. And they work great like this. And it's helped me out a lot. I know I can see my sights much better on the range. Take it out of the vise. And another thing too, you don't have to have a little tabletop vise like I do. If you got a shop out in your backyard and you got a vise, you can use that. I've got one of those Tipton Best Gun vices that you can put a rifle or something in. It's got like a vice jaws on one end. You can use that. Or you can just get some books or something like that and just prop this thing up where it'll be pretty safe and steady, and you can do it that way. And it works out really well. I think it does for me, and I'm very happy with it. Anyway, I know this is kind of a long-winded way around, but that's how I do it. And it works out really well for me. Like I say, you got different slides here, and it's worked out on all of them for me. So I'm really happy with it. I like the way they look, and I imagine I can do a lot. Oh, I got my lid on crooked. Glad I caught that. Just imagine using minuscule little drops like I was showing you, how many sights you could paint with just this one bottle. You know, so I've probably got enough of this paint. As long as I don't let it dry out on me, I probably got enough of this to last for the rest of my life anyway. And another handy thing with the Q-tips is when you go to put your cap back on, if you want to clean the rim of the jar up or something like that, you can use a Q-tip for that. It cleans it right up. That way your lids don't get stuck on here. I don't know if you were like me when I was a kid, I would use the paint, not clean the top. And then when I wanted to come back later and use the paint, I couldn't get the lid off half the time. So Anyway, like I say, Q-tips, toothpicks, paper towel, alcohol, and that's all you need. And you'll be in business. And you can paint up your gun sight just however you want to. And if you don't like it, paint over them. Use the alcohol or the thinner to get the paint back off, and do them in a different color if that's what you want to do. Anyway, I appreciate you watching this. This is Gray Shooter. I'm out of here. Have a good day, and thanks for watching.